What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today, we're going to go over my running back rankings, talking about which running backs I'd be starting and sitting this week. We're also going to go over weather. Weather is going to be a problem this week, as you can probably see from the total column here. A lot of games under. An average total is like 45.5, 46, 46.5, something in that range. A lot of games under that total. Not necessarily all due to weather. Giants, Bears, maybe some of that is weather, but let's be honest, it's the Giants with Glennon and Fromm at quarterback and the Bears. These are just bad teams. So some of these are just terrible teams facing off against each other, or one really good team with a good defense and a terrible team. So the total's gonna be lower. But some of them are weather. So we'll just touch on that. I'll show you guys the site that I would just use to track that information. Also, these rankings are not final. So if you happen to be watching this on Saturday, what I would personally do is go to the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Again, the rankings are free. Pull up the rankings and just follow along. See how things have changed throughout the week. You can listen to what I'm saying, listen to the tone on the players I'm talking about, but see what is the exact projections when you're watching this. It is possible another update has been pushed even when this video just comes out, because obviously I update them throughout the week. So that's personally what I would do. So we'll do all in that in a second. But first, of course, have to start things off as usual. Saturday, Monday, I think was the last stat. 2 wide receivers last week had 10 plus targets, but did not get double-digit half PPR points. They were Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. I said they're on the same team. It was kind of wild. Davis Garrett, first get that right on YouTube, at the Bigs, first get that right on Twitter. Today's stat, I'm on the top 15 running backs in half PPR scoring this season. Who has the fewest total touchdowns? Total touchdowns. So rushing and receiving. I guess you want to throw passing in there as well. I don't believe this player had a passing touchdown. So first we'll go to weather. Roto Grinders. All you gotta do is type in Google Roto Grinders weather and you'll find it. It's rotogrinders.com/weather/NFL. Usually you'll see this and you'll see a bunch of green. Maybe nothing's posted because the weather's fine. But this time of year, that is not the case. You're gonna have problems. So what I would do, we're not gonna go over all this. This is half or probably more than half of the games. And a lot of them just say chance of rain because it's the weather. A lot of times there's a chance of rain on Thursday and then that changes on Saturday. So I would just check Sunday morning. The biggest thing is just game line. So that's the thing we have here is OIS totals, but also check the line of the game. When you see 37.5, take note. That game is extremely likely to be low scoring, not a lot of yards, not a lot of touchdowns. That's bad for everyone in fantasy besides the defenses, I guess. So take less note of something that says chance of rain and take more note if you look at the total and it's 40 and then you look on Sunday morning and it's 36, right? That means that the weather's a problem. This game is not going to be good. So on the screen here, you can see all the games that are a problem. They list like green means it's cold, otherwise fine. It's just cold out, right? That's fine. Biggest problems are when it's a hurricane out there, there's just gale force winds. Winds is probably the biggest one because, teams are less likely to take chances deep. They're more likely to be conservative. To run the ball, it's not good for fantasy scoring. So when you see wind, especially sustained wind, when you see snow combined with wind, rain combined with wind, those are problems. When you just have rain, when you just have cold temperatures, it's not a huge issue. So take note of the oranges. The game we just looked at, Giants and Bears, not only are they horrible offenses, but we're going to have a cold game, a windy game. That's not going to be good. Falcons at Buffalo, we're going to see snow, really cold temperatures, wind. So that's not fun, especially for the passing game. And then Vikings at the Packers, really, really cold game, which, 30, 20, 15, that's fine. 5 degrees, you're probably not going to see teams dominating an offense. So watch this page. Again, Roto Grinders, weather. No, we're not affiliated or anything. Just go there. Roth is a guy who takes care of all that information. He's a former weatherman. I don't know if he still does any. But yeah, that's what I trust for weather. So check that out. But again, trust the totals a lot as well. So we will start off. We're also going to go over, remember, the injuries in each game. So I have that on the screen over there. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, I'll shout it out as well. So first game, Dolphins, Titans, 40.5 point total. We've got a 3.5 point favorites for the home team, the Titans, which means we're projecting 18.5 points for the Dolphins, 22 points for the Titans. So low scoring game. Definitely a very, very low scoring game. 41.5 is a low total. And we typically don't want players in low total games, especially good defenses. Both these teams have pretty good defenses. We're only looking at the F and the G columns here for like rush defense DVOA. We'll look at pass defense tomorrow. With both these teams, Titans and Dolphins, have really solid run defenses. So low total game, solid run defenses. Injuries aren't really an issue. No injuries for the Dolphins to really note, or at least no like new injuries. Obviously, Fuller's been off the whole year. And then Julio was placed on the COVID list Monday. So one thing, everyone keep in mind, new protocol. It's 5 days now, not 10. I can't remember what it changed for unvaccinated players. I think it's less for them as well. But that basically means, at least for my interpretation, if someone is placed in the COVID list on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they are not returning, right? You don't have enough time to pass the protocol because you need the 5 days and you don't have enough time to do that. But like Julio's placed on Monday, he's good, could be. If if he's still sick, obviously he's not going to be on the field. But he can be activated in time to play on Sunday. So now players on like Monday, Tuesday, they can be placed in the COVID list and then still play. That's something we're going to see with Carson Wentz this week. On Sunday morning, he's first eligible to come off of the list, and so it is possibly play. So keep that in mind with some players. Julio could still play this week. I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know if he's going to end up playing. But for the running backs, there's no like major injuries. Problem is for the running backs, we've got a rotation for Miami, and then again, like they're road favorites, very low total at a good defense. I don't want to play any Miami running back, and I don't really want to play any Titans running back. It'd be D'Onta Foreman. You can see here he's the running back 37 on the week. Okay, that probably means if you're in the championship, you're not relying on D'Onta Foreman. So personally, I would fade this entire like team. If you really needed to, Foreman's not a horrible option. Falcons at the Buffalo Bills, 44-point total, so a little bit lower. 14.5-point favorites for Buffalo. That is monstrous, which means they're projecting, Vegas is, or just like sportsbooks in general, 14.75 points for the Falcons, 29.25 for the Bills. So you can still play Bills players. It's a low total game. It's got weather concerns. But you can still play Buffalo Bills players, right? Because 29.25, until you see that implied total come down, that's what they're projected to score, and that's really good for fantasy. Obviously, if you're going to see a big snow game, that's a boost to like running backs over receivers. It's pretty unlikely they just go out there and air the ball out for 400 yards. If they're projected to win by more than 2 touchdowns and it's snowing out, you're probably going to see more of it on the ground. So good for the running backs. We'll pull up the running back rankings here. Patterson still, even as a big underdog, 14.75 projected points. You're playing him. You're playing Cordero Patterson every single week. I don't really see a case against that. And then Singletary, he's kind of taken over as the lead running back for Buffalo. I would not trust any other running back in this game, but I think Singletary, as such a massive home favorite, his touchdown chances are high. He's probably going to have a few receptions, especially if, they drop back for a passing play, but it's windy and snowy and they don't immediately see something deep. You're going to see a lot of dump offs. You're going to see a lot of designed screen passes because they don't want to push the ball downfield. They're good just, taking screen passes. And also, the Falcons aren't good at anything really on defense. 25th in rush defense DVOA, 22nd in yards per carry allowed. So good matchup. So I would play Singletary as running back 2 and Patterson as running back 2 as well. It's unfortunate that they're not using Patterson as much in the receiving game lately as they were like in the beginning of the season. That was awesome. But I think you still got to play him. He's talented enough to produce in any matchup. And also, just only injury news and stuff concerned for COVID. Gabriel Davis, Cole Beasley are back this week, so no Isaiah McKenzie, and just treat the Buffalo offense as we have been like the last month or so. Jaguars at the Patriots, another brutal spread here, 43.5 for the total, and then 15.5-point favorites for the Patriots. That's incredible. And with this low total, that means 13.25 projected points for the Jaguars and 28.75 for the Patriots. This, it said chance of rain. There's a chance for like a lot of rain. So there's a big system coming through New England on like Saturday, Sunday. My weather station, I guess this is for New Hampshire, but we're close enough to Boston, like an hour out, or I guess Foxborough. They weren't sure on the snow line. So basically, like the temperature is going to drop. Sunday, but they don't know exactly when it's going to switch over to snow. So it might just be gross. There's a chance we see like freezing rain coming down, just super awful conditions. And then you throw in the fact that like Trevor Lawrence is playing on the road against Bill Belichick, who always is just a nightmare for opposing like rookie quarterbacks. I mean, there's a possibility the Jaguars only score like 3 or 6 points in this one. So they could score their 13.25. That's what they should do kind of on average. It is not going to be a good day for Jacksonville Jaguars players. So we'll pull up the rankings here. Dare Ogunbowale is the top running back for Jacksonville. As I talked about, though, in the waiver wire video, and I'm probably going to drop his projection, if we're going to be completely honest. Probably going to drop all Jaguars projections. I'm not convinced that they just go out there and they give him the same touches as before. Again, as we've seen plenty of times, you've got like 3 running backs active for a team. One's on special teams. You got a starter and a backup. Or sometimes they kind of split the backup and the running back touches. And then when the starter goes down, you see that like second running back feature because they didn't have a game plan for only having these other 2 running backs. But then when they have a whole week to prepare, they activate other running backs, they bring people up from the practice squad, they implement a game plan that has multiple running backs, and so you then don't see, that guy who was backing up before and got all those touches, get all those touches again. And so when you have that possibility, in a horrible matchup, a horrible spot, I just don't see myself playing Dare Ogunbowale unless you are super desperate in a 16-team league as your second running back or your second flex. I really just cannot see playing him. So I wouldn't play literally any player on Jacksonville this week. For the Patriots, this split is going to close. Stevenson's activated. Stevenson should be good to go. And Harris should be good to go. He had that, of course, the hamstring injury like 2 weeks ago. But, I mean, he just had like 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. I haven't seen anything that said he aggravated it. So Harris should be good to go. I'm probably going to put this closer to like... The thing is, I don't think I want to drop Harris's projection, so I'm probably just going to bring up Stevenson just because they can run the ball every play if they want to in this one, and they might want to do that. And so we could see both of them approach, 17, 18 touches, which would make both them viable. So I think Stevenson's viable. I find it unlikely you'll be playing him. He's probably not the running back that got you the championship. You probably want to stick with the running backs that did that. But I would say he's probably going to end up in like the mid-20s for his ranking. And Harris should be like a quality 2. Like if you have Harris, I would definitely play him this week. A really, really good bet to score a touchdown. And then for injuries, do we have anything? Obviously, it's the stuff you knew. Hyde, you knew was out. James Robinson, you knew was out for the Jaguars. And then their entire tight end core is either hurt or on COVID IR. Not that you were playing anyone regardless. And then, it was Aguilar was DNP Wednesday. Everyone else should be good to go. And even Aguilar might be good to go, but it doesn't really matter. You weren't playing Aguilar. Next up, IND. There we go. Raiders at the Colts. 44.5 point total. 6.5 point home favorites for the Colts, which means we're looking at a 19 to 25.5 point game in favor of the Colts. Really strong run defense, really strong defense in general for the Colts. Raiders are like a fine defense. They're not awful at anything. They apply a decent amount of pressure, but they're also not projected to be winning this game, and so that factors in more when they're projected to win. Darren Waller out. He's done for the season. And then Carson Wentz, I talked about earlier, it's still unclear. He can be activated Sunday morning, but no one knows that, obviously. Like, how could any of us actually know if he's going to be cleared in time? So just watch that. If he is not cleared, I expect this line to move still in favor of the Colts, honestly, but probably closer to like 3 points. And if he plays, it'll probably jump back to 7 because I think it was at 7 before. And then Marlon Mack on COVID list. Only reason I put that is like, just know it's possible that like Jonathan Taylor ends up on the COVID list this week, right? A running back got it. He was obviously close to that running back at some point. So it is possible. Obviously, everyone is crossing their fingers, I guess, unless you play against Jonathan Taylor, that he is not on the COVID list. But this has no impact because like Mac wasn't, playing, right? Like Mac wasn't getting touches. So I think you're starting both Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs. Obviously, you're starting Jonathan Taylor. We don't need to go over that. But Jacobs getting enough touches that I think it's just worth starting him because, like, what else are they going to do, right? Like, they're going to fall behind. They're probably going to lose this game, assuming that Wentz is playing. And he's probably not going to be overly efficient because, like, again, Indy has a really good run defense. But what else are they going to do? They don't have Waller. They obviously don't have Ruggs. Like, Bryan Edwards hasn't really done anything this season. He's been a colossal bust. And so they're going to try and give Renfroe a ton of touches, but they just have to. They have to use Josh Jacobs. They don't have any other like really high-end talent. So I think he's running back too. I don't care that the matchup is awful. I think you're playing him. There's really no other analysis there. Like these guys just get enough touches where you should be putting them in your starting lineup. Bucks at Jets, 45.5 point total. Another massive spread. Bucks 13-point road favorites, which means we are projecting a 29.25 points for the Bucks, 16.25 for the Jets. So not as bad as we've seen other teams. Obviously, Godwin, Evans, Fournette are going to be out. Perriman is back. So that's like a negative to Tyler Johnson. But we talked about how Tyler Johnson was not necessarily going to get more touches last week, and then he doesn't even get targeted. So again, this offense is going to run through who you think it's going to run through. The running backs, Gronk, Antonio Brown. Maybe Perriman gets some outside work, but that's who it's going to run through. Those guys are just going to be like huge focuses for Brady. Still ranking Jones high. Watching that game, I don't really understand why Keyshawn Vaughn is not getting more work. Hopefully they do that this week. But it kind of seemed like Ronald Jones just stepped right into the Leonard Fournette light role because they just know Ronald Jones can't catch. They're not scheming those targets to Ronald Jones. And then even when Jones is active, Brady will look at him and be like, let's just force it to like quadruple coverage to AB. That probably has a better chance of being caught. So Jones fine. I might drop this a little bit. I'm hoping a story drops that like Vaughn's going to get more work and I can move them closer together. I think if you have Ronald Jones, let's be honest, this is the number one matchup you can have. I guess technically, if they were home, it'd be the number one matchup. But the Jets are just awful in every aspect of defense, and they allow so much production to running backs that Ronald Jones is probably going to score, could score twice, probably going to have like 20 fantasy points, let's be honest. So you're playing Ronald Jones if you have him. I don't think you can play Keyshawn Vaughn. For the Jets, it is a horrible spot. Obviously, everyone knows the Bucs have a strong defense. I might increase a little bit on Michael Carter. He's obviously the best running back and is good in the receiving game. They're going to fall behind. They'll have to pass the ball. So I would say if Elijah Moore and Crowder are both out, I'll give some of those targets to Carter and he'll go up maybe into like the high 20s. That's probably as high as he can go because, again, he's not going to do anything on the ground. They're not projected to score more than like one, maybe two touchdowns. And so you probably just don't want to be playing Jets players. Especially if they activate Crowder and more, that takes away more targets in the passing game. So that's kind of the take there. But just, 16.25. I think that's just like the reason I put these up here. When we see these games, Falcons 14.25, Jaguars 13, like these are really low totals. I know you're seeing a few of them this week and you're like, oh, that's just like normal. Look back at the other videos, like that is not normal to see teams that are projected to score less than 17 points. That's awful. Okay, so not a lot of production expected for some of these teams. So you don't want to be targeting them in fantasy. Next up, we've got Eagles at the football team. There we go. 45-point total, so closer to average. Pretty close game too. This should be like a pretty normal back and forth close football game. 24.25 points for the Eagles, 20.75 points for the football team. Defenses fairly neutral. I would say that the football team's easier to like pass on than they are to run on, but they have given up more production on like the second half of the season. The running backs 15th in rush defense DVOA, 8th in yards per carry allowed. That doesn't scream like pass funnel. It just screams you can kind of do what you want, right? So I would say the Eagles are still going to lean run heavy. The one thing is, look at the injuries. Miles Sanders out. He's got that broken hand. He's not playing this week. Jordan Howard was a DNP Wednesday. He's questionable with the stinger. It's possible he plays. People play through that injury. But by no means a lock. So right now, I'm just saying he's probably going to play. Maybe he's less effective. Maybe he's a little bit limited. I think we're going to get a lot more news on that. Like if they say, oh no, Jordan Howard, normal production, this flip-flops, you'd rather play Jordan Howard in that scenario. But if he's limited, if he's a DNP later in the day today on Thursday, if he's a DNP Friday again, he's probably not going to play at that point, in which case Boston Scott would be a pretty good play as a favorite, capable of catching passes. Obviously, we know the Eagles love to run the ball at this point of the season. But yeah, that's kind of the take on Philly. It's like, wait, we don't know yet. We don't know who's going to be playing. But if Howard plays and we don't get word on being limited, I think he's like a mid-20s running back. Boston Scott's probably closer to 30. Gainwell's not being played. If Howard is out, I think Scott's closer to that mid-20, maybe early 20s. Gainwell jumps up and only to like the 40s probably. And then obviously don't play Jordan Howard. And then if Howard's like limited, that's what I have projected here. So Boston Scott 28th, Howard 32nd, Kenneth Gainwell not being played. For the football team, we're seeing Gibson still as the lead back, but he was limited Wednesday. We're going to get probably like a rotation of Heineke and Allen at quarterback. That's not going to be fun to watch. This is just a bad football team. Watching them in these last few weeks, it hasn't been pretty. And especially if the Eagles can get up, they can run the ball, they can be effective there, drain the clock, limit the possessions for Washington as well. It could be ugly. So I think you're playing Gibson as like a low-end running back too. You're not playing Patterson. But just like watch this injury. I don't think they're going to shut Gibson down because like he still looks fine when he's going out there and playing, but he is clearly still injured. So watch that, but low end too for Gibson. If you've got other running backs that are inside the top 20, and you want to bench Gibson, I'm totally fine doing that. Giants at the Bears, 37.5 point total. Bears 6-point home favorites, which means we're looking at just under 16 points for the Bears, just under 22 points, or just under 16 points, for the Giants. Just under 22 points for the Bears. Ugly game. Remember, we have weather concerns in this one as well. And not due to the defenses. These two defenses have underperformed this season. Giants played well in a few games recently, but this is not going to be, like, you don't want to watch this game, right? So if you don't want to watch it, the total's low. Why are you playing players in fantasy? The big option here is David Montgomery, right? He's getting virtually all the touches he can handle. We saw Khalil Herbert have that touchdown in the game. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I don't remember which one. But that was basically just, Howard got them to the red zone. I think it was inside the 10. Maybe it was just outside the 10-yard line. And he got tired, right? And Herbert came in, first play, scores a touchdown. I think he only had 2 carries the entire game. Dave Montgomery's the entire offense. He is clearly getting a ton of touches, and they're 6-point home favorites. And their total, it's a low total game, but their total is still almost 22. That's still fine for the Bears, right? They don't score that many points on average. We saw it come out that Allen Robinson was still recovering last week. It was kind of a similar spot to Tyreek Hill. Flip-flop that. Tyreek Hill was still recovering last week. He played 40-something% of the snaps. He was, still suffering the symptoms, I guess, of COVID. He was cleared to play, but he was clearly limited. We could see something like that for Allen Robinson if he's able to return this week. He's still dealing with the illness, and we've seen a lot from players in their first week back. They're just not conditioned well, right? Because they're not practicing the whole week that they're out. They're not feeling well. They have a clear illness, and so always note that when players are coming off of the COVID list, there's a possibility they're not themselves that first week back. So not that you were really playing, obviously, as a running back video, but I think the point is, don't think that Fields might be coming back, Robinson might be coming back 100%. This offense is good to go now. Look at the total. It's still a very low total game. They're probably not going to do well. Dave Montgomery, just play him. For the Giants, Barkley and Tony were DNPs on Wednesday. We know Shepard's out for the season. We're going to get a rotation of Glennon and Fromm. That's disgusting. They're projected just under 16 points, so not a good spot, even though the Bears don't have that great of a defense. I think that you're playing Barkley as a low end too, but he has not been good recently. They're mixing in Booker just to try and keep him healthy, not run him down. They know they're out of it, obviously, this season. And could we see a spot where Barkley misses this game? Yes. Just watch the practice reports, though. If he comes back limited Thursday, it was probably just a rest day on Wednesday. But watch the practice reports on this one. We've got Cincy up next, right? Yeah, this will be a good game. So we've got Chiefs at the Bengals, 51-point total. Finally a good total. 5-point road favorites for the Chiefs, which means we're looking at 28-23. I think it's one of only 2 games over 50-point total this week, so it should be a fun one to watch. We've got, again, Tyreek Hill was not 100% last week. I'd expect him to be 100% this week. Clyde is likely out, hasn't been ruled out yet, but I don't think he's playing. McKinnon out. Kelsey should be coming back. No real news for the Bengals players. Always play Joe Mixon. Don't need to go over that. We do need to go over the Chiefs. So if we have Clyde out, if we got McKinnon out, that means we're going to have Darrell Williams and Derek Gore as their 2 running backs. We know Darrell Williams played really, really well as the lead back earlier this season when Clyde missed time. And then Derek Gore is capable, but it obviously, like, Williams is the better running back. So if Kansas City gets up, if they want to use Gore in some drives, that could work. You know, he might get to like 8. Again, this is like the half PPR rankings. He gets to like 8 half PPR points. But again, in the championship, like, unless you're in like a 20 team league, you're really playing Derek Gore in the championship, very unlikely. But Darrell Williams, yeah, he can be used as a low end running back too. He can be used in the receiving game. They'll use him at the goal line. He's pretty good. He's a pretty good running back. He's a very serviceable running back. So I think you're playing him as a lone running back too. Bengals have like a quality defense. 18th in rush defense CVA, 4th in yards per carry allowed. But the upside for Williams isn't necessarily that he's going to run for 120 yards. It's that he might mix in like 4 receptions for 30 yards, score a touchdown, and then who cares what he did on the ground? He'll still be fine on the ground. So I think you're playing Darrell Williams if you have him. Nope. I always get the acronyms wrong on the Rams, the Chargers. I never remember what I do. Next up, Ravens. Oh my goodness. It was right with the Rams. Rams at the Ravens. 46.5 point total. Rams are 3.5 point road favorites, which means we're looking at 25 to 21.5. A pretty like average game. I think it's going to depend on Lamar Jackson, but if you saw the clip that was circulating Twitter, I believe it was yesterday, Lamar does not look good. He's clearly limping. He doesn't look 100%. Hopefully they just like hold him out. We get Huntley as the quarterback because Huntley's been pretty solid. And if you have Andrews, you want Huntley being the quarterback. He's going to get peppered with targets. Good defenses all around here. Rams, 4th in rush defense DVOA, 6th in yards per carry allowed. Ravens, 6th in rush defense DVOA, 1st in yards per carry allowed. So not spots we're looking to like attack for the running backs. But a decent game. Could be a shootout, could be higher scoring, but I would say like mid-20s is kind of what we're looking at for each of these teams. For the Rams, Sony Michel, we've got Henderson. I did write it down. So Akers could play, but note that Akers isn't going out there and getting 20 touches, right? He's going out there and getting a few touches in his first game back, if he's even out there at all. Obviously, it is a boost to Sony Michel if Akers doesn't play because he gets literally 100% of the touches. But even if Akers plays, he's getting like some of the touches. It's not going to be much. You're just playing Sony Michel. If you have Sony Michel, play him this week. And then for Baltimore, Freeman is the only running back you can really trust. It's not a good spot, but he's always like on the fringe. He's a guy in a deeper format, like 14, 16 teams. You want to play him the flex, running back 2, second flex spot. You're just like, hey, I just need a running back. I need someone to go out there who's going to maybe get a touchdown, maybe get a few receptions, maybe get some like rushing production, just like a little bit of everything. Freeman's your guy, but I don't think you really need to play him this week. The spot's not great. They're underdogs even at home. Might not have Lamar again. Good run defense, good defense in general for the Rams. It's not a fantastic spot, so I don't think you need to go there. Texans at 49ers. Up next, we've got a 44-point total, 12.5 point home favorites to the 49ers, which means we're looking at under 16 points for the Texans, just over 28 for the 49ers. That's a big spread. Houston's been playing better as of late, but home favorites for the 49ers against an attackable run defense. I mean, that's just a smash spot for San Fran. 26th in rush defense DVOA, 31st in yards per carry allowed for the Texans. I know it didn't happen last week for the Chargers, but you got to think the 49ers are going to be ahead winning this game, which is going to limit the production for the Texans. Brandon Cooks will be back. David Johnson's back on the COVID list. So I guess he's either got it again or it was like a false positive before. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not there with the team, but he's probably not going to play this week. Elijah Mitchell, that's a big one, obviously. Limited this week. That has effects for the entire offense, really. You can definitely play. I would say that you should be playing Jeff Wilson if Elijah Mitchell is out. I have him projected to be like probably playing right now. I would say if Elijah Mitchell plays, play him. They love him. He's so much better than Jeff Wilson. This is a smash spot. Play Elijah if he is playing, and probably don't play Jeff Wilson if Elijah Mitchell is back. If Mitchell is out again, play Jeff Wilson. It is also going to increase the rushing production for Deebo Samuel, but you're playing him anyways. I can go over that stuff in the wide receiver video as well, but it's a boost to Brandon Ayuk as well if Jeff Wilson's the running back and not Mitchell, because there are fewer plays where Deebo Samuel is lined up at wide receiver as well. He lines up in the backfield more when Jeff Wilson is running back. But for the running backs, again, play whoever starts and don't play the one who's not playing or doesn't start if it's Jeff Wilson. For the Texans, I know Rex Burkhead looked like LaDainian Tomlinson last week, but he's still Rex Burkhead. And the Chargers have an awful run defense. The 49ers have a better run defense. The Chargers, second in rush defense DVOA, 11th in yards per carry allowed. Chargers, 32nd in rush defense DVOA, 29th in yards per carry allowed. So he's going to have a much worse, much better, I guess, defense he's going against, a much worse efficiency day. And then you factor in, like, they scored 41 last week. And I know he was the reason they did that, but their projected score just under 16 this week. Probably limited offensive snaps, offensive drives for the Texans players. It's not a good spot. So don't go chasing Rex Burkhead. I don't think he's going to have a good game this week. But again, 14-16 team league, second flex spot. If you need it, sure, whatever. You can do it if you want to. It's a championship, though. I don't think you're going to need to do that. Broncos at the Chargers, average 46-point total. Chargers 6.5-point home favorites, which means we're looking at just under 20 points for the Broncos, just over 26 points for the Chargers. For the Chargers, obviously just play Austin Eckler. Don't play any other running back. I got a lot of questions on Justin Jackson. Yes, he's been playing really well, but it's volume and it's the offense. The starting running back on the Chargers is going to produce, and Justin Jackson's a good running back. But when Austin Eckler's back, they're not benching Austin Eckler for Justin Jackson, especially in the receiving game. So Jackson, he can go out there and get 7 to 8 carries, a few targets, and maybe I bump him up into like the low 30s, but this is the championship. Like, he's probably not going to get that many touches. Denver's not a horrible defense. He's unlikely to post more than like 10 fantasy points. And so you can play him and get lucky for him to like produce value, but you're trying to win, right? And you're probably going up against a good team. You're in the championship. And so you can't really have a guy whose ceiling is like 10 to 12. You need someone who's got 20 touches in the range of outcomes, and that's just like not the case for Justin Jackson. So personally, Eckler coming back, I'm not playing Justin Jackson, but if you're super desperate, I suppose you could. But again, I have him projected for 8.5 points, and that might bump up to 9. But that's not someone you want to be playing at running back this week. For Denver, I think I'm going to close this gap a little bit between Williams and Gordon. But as I've said, that gap I expected to like expand throughout the end of the season. It hasn't really happened. But Williams is still the better running back. He's the guy that you have to think like Denver's out of it at this point. And so you have to think that at some point going to start leaning on him. And it's a good matchup. I just talked about how Rex Burkhead looked like LaDainian Tomlinson against the Chargers. Well, what do you think the Broncos are going to do, right? They're not supposed to score a lot of points. Drew Lock should be the quarterback again, and Tim Patrick's on the COVID list now. But, like, Drew Lock is just awful. Do you really think they want Drew Lock dropping back a ton against the Chargers? No. They want to run the ball every single play. And so I think I'm going to move these closer together, but really more just, like, move up Melvin Gordon, because I know they looked awful last week, but they have to. They have to run the ball against the Chargers. They have no other path to winning. And so I think that he'll move up into like the mid-20s, and you'll be able to play him as like a low-end 2 or a flex with the understanding that like it's still a 2 running back committee and they're projected to score under 20 points. But I think if you have Javonte Williams, you can absolutely play him as a running back 2, and I would play him as a running back 2 because it's their only chance of winning this game is if they play him. And let's be honest, they want to develop him as well. Lions at the Seahawks up next. This game has a 42.5-point total, so another low total. 6.5-point home favorites for the Seahawks. Pull up the rankings there. For the Lions, okay matchup. Both teams okay matchup. I mean, obviously, like the Lions have an awful defense, so it's a better matchup for Seattle. But it's not like Seattle has like this amazing defense, right? Question marks abound for Detroit. Does Swift play? He was a full go on Wednesday, so you'd think he'd play. The news out of their camp seems like this is finally the week he's going to return. If he does return, understand it's going to be a rotation between him, Jamal Williams, and Craig Reynolds. If we get on Sunday morning, like Craig Reynolds is out, he's like a healthy scratch, and they are just going to go with Swift and Williams, expect them to like roughly split. And for it to be viable to play DeAndre Swift, I think the days of Swift as running back 1 are over. But if we only get Swift and Williams as the 2 running backs and we like know that he's playing, I think both of them are viable as like low end 2s to flex. But I would feel obviously like not great about Williams and like decently better about Swift because he can get there in fewer touches. Like he's probably going to only get like, 7 to 10 carries, but if it comes with like 7 targets, he can get there. So I think you're playing Swift to be plays, and Williams, if Swift is playing, you probably don't want to go there. For Seattle, hey, home favorites, 24.5 points. That's good for them against the defense. And the Lions, that's 28th in rush defense AVOA, 27th in yards per carry allowed. Rashard Penny, he's a good play. If you have Penny, play him. Play him in the championship. He's looked phenomenal when healthy, and you only need him to be healthy for one more game, right? So if you've got him, I think you are playing him. Panthers at the Saints up next. Gross 38.5 point total. We've got 6.5 point home favorites to the Saints, which is pretty embarrassing for the Panthers. So we're looking at like 16 points to the Panthers, 22.5 for the Saints. Obviously, play Alvin Kamara. You don't need me to tell you that. I know he's bad last week, but I mean, he's Alvin Kamara, right? And it's a run funnel, right? The Panthers have a really strong pass defense. I did want to note Gilmore's expected to miss this week. So that like makes them a more attackable pass defense, but still play Kamara. For the Panthers, you're really, I know you guys see Michael Carter here. It's because of the car. I can do this, right? Yeah, there we go. For the Panthers, no one. Hubbard has been awful. We're not playing Royce Freeman. This is the Saints, 1st in rush defense DVOA, 5th in yards per carry allowed. You're in the championship. You're not playing Panthers running backs. Arizona Cardinals at the Dallas Cowboys, 52 point total. So I believe now the highest total of the week. 5.5 point home favorites for Dallas. This will be a fun game to watch. We've got James Conner and Rondale Moore, both DMPs on Wednesday. Both can be game time decisions. Hopefully we know that on Saturday night, but note that we might not. And then no injury news for like the skill players for the Cowboys. Good defenses. Obviously we know Dallas has a really strong defense. Cardinals have a strong defense as well. So seeing a 52 point total, that's a shout out to the offenses here, that they are really good offenses. And also they're playing in a dome. They're playing in Jerry's World. So like, you don't have like the weather concerns that all these other games this week have. I think you're playing Zeke if you have him. He's looked better as of late. He said he's gaining health. And even when he was hurt, they were getting him touches. So obviously they're going to use him now. So you got Zeke, you're playing him. You got Tony Pollard. It's fine. Now he's the one that's like hurt. But you're probably in the championship. He didn't get you there. Your team's probably decent. I don't know the upsides there. It's similar to some players we talked about before. It's like, I don't know that he's going to go out there and get 20 touches and like multiple touchdowns and stuff. So since the touchdown upside's low, I don't know. I personally would probably just not play Tony Pollard this week. Edmonds and Connor's going to come down to Connor's status, right? If Connor's out there, they're pretty equal as far as fantasy production. If Connor's out, Edmonds is a smash play. Not that it's a great matchup or anything, but it's, a high total game, so we could see a back and forth game. I know most of those points coming on the Cowboys side, but it's a high total game, so we could still see what you're basically looking for like a ton of production is for it to stay close. And if it's close and they go over the total, we could see both teams approach 30, right? So even though the average is like 23 here for Arizona, doesn't mean they're going to score 23. They could still score closer to 30. And we know that, if they're trailing, Edmonds could rack up a ton of receptions. I don't remember how many he had last week, but it was like 7 or 8 receptions. That can happen again, and you're playing running backs to have that in the range of outcomes. So if Connor's out, you're absolutely playing Edmonds. If Connor plays, they're both like low-end running back 2s because this is still a really good game environment. Vikings at the Packers is up next. This game is a 47.5 point total. Packers, 6.5 point home favorites, which means just over, or I guess 20.5 points for the Vikings, 27 points for the Packers. Defenses, nothing really to note as far as run defenses. The Packers are much more attackable on the ground than they are through the air, so you got to think the Vikings want to run it. Vikings have been playing better defense as of late, but this is the Packers at home. Like, they're going to be good, right? Dalvin Cook plays, you're playing him. You're playing Aaron Jones. I think you can play A.J. Dillon. He's got touchdown upside. He's got upside to catch a few passes. He can get some work on the ground, especially if they want to run the clock out late. And so I think you can play A.J. Dillon as like a low-end running back too. You're playing Aaron Jones. You're playing Dalvin Cook. I wanted to note Conklin DNP, Thielen out. So the weapons overall for Minnesota aren't like that. There's just not that many of them. So if Conklin were to be out and Thielen were to be out, you're going to get a lot of production focused on Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. So obviously, like, you're playing them anyways, but they're in explosion spots. The problem is, like, it's a bad matchup for, like, Justin Jefferson. So they could lean on the running backs here. You could see Madison play a little bit more, but not enough to, like, be viable. So if Dalvin Cook plays, you can't play Madison and just play Dalvin Cook. Final game of the week. Browns at Steelers. Low 41-point total. 3.5-point road favorites for the Browns. But there's no analysis. You play Nick Chubb every week. You play Najee Harris every week. You don't play the backup running backs. I guess the one thing is Kareem Hunt was activated off of the COVID list, but he's still hurt, right? So that's just a wait and see. I believe he's a DNP on Wednesday, but don't quote me on that. Watch his practice status on Thursday and Friday. If he's a DNP both those days, he's probably not going to play. If he can get some sort of limited snaps in or like limited workload in practice, he might go out there and play. But he's clearly not going to be 100% this week. But, note, 30th in rush defense DVOA, 32nd in yards per carry allowed. The Steelers have been getting wrecked on the ground. They're not a good run defense at this point. And so Cleveland wants to run the ball anyways, so you know they're going to run it a ton. So if you need to, Hunt plays, you need to play him at running back 2 or in the flex, you can do it because the matchup is really good. It's like a good running offense, obviously. But if you're in a 12-team league and he's like only limited on Friday, note that he's still hurt. And if you have another option, I prefer to go there. So that'll do it for this week's running back start sits video. We've got wide receiver start sits tomorrow, same exact format. And again, if you want to see the rankings as they change through the week, they're completely free. Also, the sports betting information is free. You want DraftKings projections, core plays, you can check that out. You want moneyline bets, pick'em bets, best bets of the week, whatever you want, all free on the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting that like button and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here. Thanks for watching.